Yo people, welcome back to another review. This time it's Daredevil Born Again episodes 5 and 6. They decided to do a double release yet again, and I can see why. The whole of episode 5 was pretty much a throwaway episode in my opinion, and the weakest one so far this season. The whole point of this was to unfortunately start connecting Miss Marvel to Daredevil, which is an absolute joke. It felt like Marvel told the Daredevil writers that there has to be an episode that ties into a current MCU character, preferably one of the Young Avengers, and they just created this episode. That scene where Daredevil goes to the bank and Miss Marvel's dad tells Matt about his daughter could have literally been a scene at the end of the show or at the end of an episode, and it didn't have to be played out into this huge episode. I understand that they're in the same universe, they're pretty close to each other in terms of location, so it makes it realistic, but I still think Miss Marvel's character can't be going anywhere near Daredevil until she's grown up more. Daredevil, by the looks of it, is going to be mentoring the new White Tiger, which in my opinion, I actually like this because the actress seems to be good, she seems serious, she fits the overall theme and mood of this show. But what I don't want happening is that they start turning this whole thing into a daycare for Matt Murdock, with White Tiger, then Miss Marvel, then Kate Bishop, and all their MCU friends. I think White Tiger and Daredevil alone would be cool. We did get a look at some new characters as well in episode 5 as well, but max they'll do is be side characters for the rest of the show. Maybe season 2 they'll get a bit more growth, but episode 5 was pretty much pointless in terms of pushing the overall plot of this season, and if they had just released that on its own as it was originally planned, then the fan base would have had a complete meltdown this week after waiting a whole week just for that episode. I do also think that they did this 2-in-1 release because of the low views that Daredevil is apparently getting. So they did the 2-in-1 in order to boost their views for this week, and it was a good idea they did that. The annoying thing for me about episode 5 was that it felt very awkward. It felt like they shoved the episode in halfway and it stopped the momentum after we got a great episode 4. And then in episode 6, we're just expected to pick up where we left off in episode 4, even though they made a lot of changes in episode 5 to do with the topics, the themes, the overall mood, the overall feel of the episode. We know this show went through a whole bunch of reshoots, rewrites, and people weren't happy with the original script. A couple of scripts were made. Some characters like Karen and Foggy weren't even meant to be in this show originally. Apparently the actor for Punisher had quit at one point because he wasn't happy with what they were going to do with the Punisher, and he only returned because he got to have a say on what they were going to do with the character going forwards. For me, episode 5 felt like it got forced or moved from its original location. This feels like an episode that should have been maybe episode 2 or 3, where Matt Murdock is still in his I Quit Daredevil era. By the end of episode 4, he's literally training and practicing to be Daredevil again. So yeah, overall, it was still a good individual episode for what it was, but in the grand scheme of things and for this whole season, it does nothing. We had to put a pause on all the momentum that we've been building up from episode 1 to episode 4. It just all felt a bit strange. As for episode 6, as I've been saying in all the reviews, Daredevil and Kingpin have shared parallels throughout this whole show. They both quit being their former self. Kingpin because of that stupid Echo mind trick, and Daredevil because of the death of Foggy. Then, as episodes go on, both are living lives that they can't because it's not who they truly are. And episode by episode, we see how they slowly turn into who they truly are, which is who they were in the Netflix show. And in episode 6, we now have the full return of both characters. Kingpin is done doing the whole fake politician version of himself, trying to be nice, trying to control everything in a civil way. But now he has control of the whole city and he's just going to do whatever he wants. And we've seen that with the task force, for example. Daredevil is back wearing the costume and actually doing crime fighting. So that was the overall theme of this episode and a culmination of events from episode 1 right until episode 6. They do this thing where their scenes are side by side, like in episode 6, where they both have different fight scenes with different people to show the similarities they share, however, from different ends of morality. And I do like when they show these parallels, however, I think it was a bit too obvious in episode 6, but it was still good to see. Episode 6 had its good moments, like Kingpin finally hiring his own task force to start the corruption and the dictatorship of Kingpin on New York City. We got to see the return of his ways, for example when he's battering Adam. I do think he will end up betraying Vanessa, shedding his weaknesses, and we should hopefully get the most ruthless version of Kingpin that we've ever seen in live action. However, one thing in particular I didn't like was how they treated the niece and just did the whole stupid child plot device. She gets herself captured by Muse at night because she's trying to investigate why people are going missing. She gets captured, and it just felt a bit forced and like it had to happen so that Daredevil would return and save her. Now, don't get me wrong, that was the final event that pushed Matt over the edge into returning as Daredevil, so I can appreciate that. It's just the way they did it I'm not really too happy with. Now, people will go online and they'll say, yeah, Daredevil returned because of the niece. She's the reason he's back. And I think that would be a lie. We've seen episode by episode, he's been closer and closer to returning as Daredevil. However, yes, this was the final event that made him return physically, but I think in terms of a mental perspective, Punisher was the one that got him to return and snap out of being scared, running away from the truths, and accepting that Foggy is dead. That final stage of grief, the acceptance, he finally got there because of Punisher. And yeah, White Tiger's niece was the one that got him to finally take action because her life was on the line. So yeah, I like that combination, the mental aspect, the physical aspect, but we are finally here with 3 episodes left. So in conclusion, episode 5 as a standalone was good, but for the overall of this season, it does nothing. It was a throwaway. They just wanted to connect Miss Marvel to Daredevil. Episode 6, it was pushing plot quickly. We got to learn a little bit more about Muse. Still not a lot. There's a lot to uncover with that character. Potentially has ties with the corrupt police, but could be an admirer of the vigilante scene, even though what he's doing is fucked. I do think this season ends with Kingpin winning or just taking full control of the city and employing his dictatorship. Hopefully this is a good ending. We know Disney Plus has this thing where it rushes the ending or it forces things to happen just for the sake of it. So yeah, hopefully it sticks to the good stuff it's done in episode 1 to 4. I'd appreciate if you could leave your thoughts down below in the comments. What did you make of this double release of episodes 5 and 6? Like the video as well. Sub to channel as we close in on 1k subscribers. Thank you for your time and have a great rest of your day.